Thank you everyone for being here and welcome. I'm here as the founder and director of the Inner Resources Center and the director of the area of emphasis for meditation and psychology. And I'm very happy that joining us are several students in various stages of the process to tell you a little bit about what their experience has been in the area of emphasis. So we have Alicia Torres, who's a PhD student in the area of emphasis, Adriana Panting, who's a predoctoral intern now. Hillary Rosenberg won't join us, but she did provide slides that I can share with you. And also Dr. Sarah DeLuca is here and she'll be talking a little bit about her experience. So to begin, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the area of emphasis and what's involved, and then I'll turn it over to the students. And at the end, we can have questions and answers, and I will turn off the recording for that. So the meditation and psychology area of emphasis has 3 simple requirements. One is generalist training in the PhD program. So area of emphasis students just complete all the requirements of the clinical psychology PhD that everyone else does. Then there's a minimum of 1 year of clinical training, and we call that, AKA the mindfulness practicum. It's a supplemental practicum experience. And then students complete a dissertation on a related topic. Most students, as you'll see, do much more than that. The clinical training part of the area of emphasis entails a minimum of 1 year of supplemental practicum training. It's called psychoeducational groups, and that's completed in addition to your regular practicum training, so not instead of. And it's open to all students in the PhD program between their 2nd and 4th year in the program. And so students can complete 1 to 3 years of this supplemental practicum. So students can take it from multiple years. Advanced students get training and supervised experience in clinical supervision. And they can also take on senior roles for projects like community consultation and training efforts that we get involved in. So the sequence, the yearly sequence of the supplemental practicum is in the fall quarter. You learn and practice inner resources for stress. So what that means is you actually get credit for meditating, which I think is kind of cool. In the winter and spring quarter, students offer at least 1 group in a clinical or community site, 1 inner resources for stress group. And then there is all year long weekly group supervision and a personal meditation practice requirement. So it's pretty simple. And in subsequent years in the training, in the clinical training program, students join me and as a trainer in the group and as a clinical supervisor under my supervision. The practicum training, I just wanted to share a little statistics that I had put together recently. And I wanted to share with you, we started the practicum in 2006. And since then, between me and my students and other faculty and trainees, we've given the inner resources training to about 3,200 participants. So we average about 350 a year. And at 65 different sites, most of them in the Bay Area, but they include sites around the country and around the world. And they're community medical and community mental health sites. About each year, I accept about 6 to 8 students who enroll in the practicum training. And since 2006, 130 students have completed this training. Recently, the Inner Resources for Stress manual was translated into Spanish by Adriana Panting, who you'll hear from today. And in addition, advanced students in the practicum often get experience as community trainers. For example, along with now Dr. DeLuca, we provided mindfulness training at 5 sites in the Bay Area for 123 mental health providers. In 2020, just about a month ago, it seems so long ago now, but it was only a month ago that along with 3 students, we did a workshop for 25 teachers in the Mountain View Los Altos School District English Language Development Department, because they were very stressed and asked for our help. So these are the kind of extra training projects that students get involved in. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about the research training. The research requirement is that the dissertation research has to be related in some way to the influence of mind-body factors on health. and disorder and resiliency. And any dissertation chair can supervise work that's counts toward the meditation and psychology emphasis. So it doesn't have to be me or any of the other area of emphasis faculty. It can be any faculty member who supervises that. But as the director and the other area of emphasis faculty, like Dr. Jan Haybarth, you're available to serve as dissertation chairs and committee members and advise on your projects. We have an active grant-funded research program, and we use an evidence-based intervention. So over the years, I've gotten almost $2 million together with my colleagues in collaborative research funding on mindfulness and related topics. And the Inner Resources for Stress program that students get trained in is an evidence-based manualized intervention. We have conducted 9 clinical trials collaboratively, 4 of which have been randomized control trials. And we also have a neuroimaging study that was done with colleagues at Stanford. We have a national and international adoption of this. Just today, I sent out the link that some of you might have gotten already, that the Inner Resources for Stress program is available online as an on-demand webinar, and we're offering that for free, especially in recognition of the current conditions with a lot of stress owing to COVID-19 illnesses. And we also recently got national recognition, the intervention did, as a best practice for caregiving. And best practice is an important designation, meaning that it's undergone stringent scientific review, and it meets a scientific standard as a best practice for dementia family caregiving. So those are some of the research. Now I wanted to talk about my research group because students in the area of emphasis also frequently apply to my research group. There are 4 main things that we do research on nowadays, and we still do work about outcomes of mindfulness and meditation. Increasingly, we're becoming interested in the mechanisms of efficacy. How does mindfulness and meditation and these other treatment components, how do they help to promote either recovery from stress or mental disorders or promote wellness? We also have turned our attention to therapist training. So many people want to do mindfulness nowadays. What is the standard for therapist training? What's the standard for preparation for therapists to do this kind of work? And that's something Dr. DeLuca will probably talk about in just a moment. And we also look at diversity considerations in mindfulness and meditation. People of color have been disproportionately neglected in this area of research, and that is something Dr. DeLuca will probably also talk about because we just published a review together about that. So those are the 4 areas that I'm particularly interested in, and within a special focus on trauma and applications of mindfulness and meditation for trauma. So here's some recent papers that we've published alongside of students really just in the last year and a half, a few titles of projects. And you can see they're on a lot of different topics. Some of my students and I have contributed about mindfulness interventions, disaster resilience in Southeast Asia, because we've done some of this work in the Philippines following natural disasters. Another students who are interested in forensic psychology did a pilot study of inner resources for young people in juvenile detention. Along with other students, we wrote a piece about mindfulness in peace promotion and peace building efforts. We also published a study of a one sample clinical trial of using the inner resources, mindfulness and mantra training for disaster mental health workers. And so that suddenly seems so relevant now that there is kind of a global pandemic that everyone is dealing with. And Dr. DeLuca is here today to talk to us about her review, a systematic review that she published about diversity research. So let's turn to the students now. And I think Alicia's here and can maybe tell us about her work and experiences in the area of emphasis.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm sorry I'm having internet issues today, so I think I fixed it, but if I freeze, please be patient with me. Um, I can go ahead and talk about my experience. I'm in the meditation and psychology area of emphasis, and I'm in Dr. Waldy's lab. Um, So, in terms of research experience, I'm in the process of figuring out my dissertation, and so it's a little bit of a mess right now. But I'm interested in how the effects of mindfulness and meditation can reduce rumination for both positive and negative affect and bipolar disorder, and then how that can affect psychosocial functioning. Um, since I'm a second year in Dr. Wally's lab, I don't have as much experience as other people you'll be hearing from today, but I was able to serve as an editorial assistant for a book that Dr. Waldy edited about um, resistance, resilience, and recovery from disasters in Southeast Asia. And I also co-authored a chapter in that book as well. And as an editorial assistant, I was basically just kind of helping organize the chapters, organizing the communications between the chapters authors, making sure the chapters were in accordance to APA and the publisher guidelines. And now I will be, as of yesterday, working as a research assistant on a new project with Dr. Waldy with a lot of these same colleagues. In clinical experience, I'm in Gronowski right now, so I am in the serious mental illness group. And in terms of how that applies with mindfulness and meditation, I have used DBT, which is a mindfulness informed practice, and you'll learn about those differences if you get a chance to take the psychology of, I believe it's mindfulness, psychology of mindfulness and meditation, the seminar that is offered every year, which I highly recommend because it really helped me with my dissertation and also my experience at Inner Resources. So I am currently a student facilitator in Inner Resources. So last quarter, I co-facilitated an 8-week group at the Sunnyvale Senior Center. I was also one of the co-facilitators at the Mountain View High School that Dr. Waldy mentioned that we did some work in. And this quarter, I'll be running one of the PAU student groups that we're offering to the PAU community. I am also the president of the Meditation Mindfulness Student Organization that we're revamping up. And so right now, what we're looking for is new members, a treasurer and a secretary. We need at least 7 members to get the organization restarted. And what we would be doing as an organization is hosting events and guest lectures related to mindfulness and meditation. So we hope to have professors within PAU, the community come in and give some lectures about meditation and mindfulness and how it can be applied to your career, and maybe do some fun workshops with yoga and stuff like that. And so if you're interested in joining the organization or holding a leadership position, please contact me below. Or if you have like any more questions about um, second year in the PhD program or just in general about mindfulness and meditation in your career, please feel free to email me.
Thanks so much, Alicia. It's a lot of, it doesn't sound like a lot for a second year student, but it actually is quite a lot. I wanted to introduce Adriana Panting, who's with us.
Hi, as Dr. Waldy said, my name's Adriana. I'm a 5th year PhD candidate, so I'm expected to graduate this year, although I did just see the email that they are moving our graduation because of COVID, but I will graduate when allowed. I am also in the area of emphasis, and I'm here to kind of give some information about my experiences over the years. So I did have some previous employment experience, mainly with individuals experiencing trauma, people who had a serious mental illness, and working with people in community settings and in the jail. One of my main focuses from my previous experience was also working with diverse individuals, specializing more in Latino mental health, as I'm someone who speaks Spanish, and I do try to use that in my professional endeavors. So similarly, some of my practicum experiences reflected those interests. I started off at the Clinical Latina at the Gronowski Center, working with Latinx individuals of various ages with various presentations. I continued on at Santa Clara Valley Medical, gaining more experience working with people who were dealing with homelessness, serious mental illness, identified as LGBT, or were having immigration issues as well. And then my last year of training was at San Mateo Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, working with individuals who similarly had serious mental illness, substance use issues, and then also were ethno-racially diverse. And then I also had 2 years of supplemental practicum training at the Inner Resources Center, which I'll explain in the next slide. And this year, currently, I am at internship. I am at an APA accredited internship. I'm at the Community Health Awareness Council, which is actually down the street from the Gronowski Clinic, for those of you that are familiar with the area or took the tour. And I'm in a Latinx program. I'm working with individuals across the lifespan and doing assessment and some other opportunities. And then I've had a lot of experiences within the emphasis. I think I've actually participated in most of the experiences within the emphasis, even those that were optional. So one of the experiences I wanted to highlight was that there is the Elton C. and Joan R. Waldy Meditation and Psychology Award. So there's a PAU award banquet every year. And for those that have participated in the area of emphasis, they're eligible to apply or to be nominated for an award that comes with some financial scholarship. There's 3 different awards. So I have won 2 of the awards for the past 2 years. So that is something that people are able to apply for. There's only 3 awards given. And it's for students who've demonstrated commitment and excellence in research and clinical application of meditation and mindfulness. I also did participate in the meditation and psychotherapy elective course that was mentioned. So I was a student 1 year, and then the next year I was a teacher's assistant. The course was very helpful for my kind of more research-based conceptualization of meditation and mindfulness, and even some colleagues and classmates who were not in the emphasis did say they really benefited from this course. So you don't have to be in emphasis to take this elective course. And then I'm currently working on my dissertation. My dissertation is, as Dr. Waldy mentioned, I'm in her research group, and one of my focuses in her research group has been on diversity applications of meditation and mindfulness. So my dissertation is examining sociocultural differences in relation to trait mindfulness. I'm studying Latinos specifically. And then in the research group, I have been involved in 2 publications with Dr. Waldy.
And in addition, you did translate the Inner Resources for Stress manual in the Spanish, which I think was pretty important, and you had some clinical experience using it. I'd like to also mention that the manual that Adriana translated is now in use in some community mental health centers in the area. So the translation that she performed, which included the audio recordings in Spanish, was that we were able to pilot test it in an agency that we were funded to work with for mindfulness training. So did you want to say a little bit about your experience offering mindfulness training in Spanish?
Yes, so you are spoiler alerting my next slide.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. So yes, I was in the Inner Resources Supplemental Practicum for years, and one of the first projects that I was a part of in the Inner Resources Center was the translation of the manual. So I did previous employment work for independent contracting for translation. So I did the initial translation, and then it was reviewed and edited by a few different mental health agencies, local agencies that provided services in Spanish. So it was reviewed by a few different clinicians who were familiar with the clinical language and also the mindfulness application. and we got feedback on that. We also made a few cultural considerations when adapting the manual. So we adapted some of the references and some of the jokes to be more relevant to Latinx cultures. And as Dr. Waldy said, the manual is currently in use. I was a part of the first, I guess, group to use the manual. So the first group that was led in Spanish with the manual was at the Community Health Awareness, or the Community Health Awareness Council, CHAC, for Spanish speakers in a Latinx support group. So it was mainly moms and dads and parents and family members experiencing a wide range of issues themselves or there to support their family members. And I think the first group had 30 some participants in total, and the participants reported benefits from the manual, or from the group in total, and they said that the manual was easy to understand, easy to follow. We were able to make some adaptations there in the moment for some of the participants who had reading and writing difficulties. And then since then, the manual has been used in other local training centers and community health centers. And we've heard good feedback about its use. And then my other experiences in the Inner Resources Center, as a practicum student, I led a group at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center for at the Alexian Homeless Clinic. So the group was mainly individuals experiencing serious mental illness and homelessness. As I mentioned, I also used the manual at the Community Health Awareness Council. And then in my second year of the practicum, the second year is when you are often able to take some more leadership roles and projects and responsibilities. So I helped supervise a first year practicum student in the supplemental practicum to deliver groups in Spanish. So I supervised a group that she gave at GSECI, which was a community mental health agency in San Mateo County. And the group was provided by the San Mateo Latino Collaborative, as well as the Inner Resources Center. So that was another experience using the protocol in Spanish for a different population. A lot of the people in that group were workers of the county or professionals, whereas the first group I led it with was more like individuals from the community. And then through the practicum, I was also able to further my passion for supervising and providing services in Spanish. So I was also able to provide support to the Spanish-speaking students that were in the practicum and their delivery of the protocol. So part of that meant, meeting individually or meeting by phone to just practice giving the protocol and some of the meditations if the student felt nervous or had questions about the language. So it's nice that through this practicum, everyone does share similar experiences in providing groups, but you get to really have your own unique experience related to your own interests. Because through the practicum experience, I was able to further my interests and experience with serious mental illness and diversity in Spanish speakers. So the flexibility within the practicum is a really unique opportunity that I appreciated.
And just today I applied for a grant to have Adriana record the material from the manual for a live webinar to complement the one that we are just launched today in English. So fingers crossed on that.
Mm-hmm. Then future plans. So the Inner Resources Center supplemental practicum, as well as my experiences in the area of emphasis, have I guess strengthened my clinical background, and they've furthered, I guess it's opened opportunities for me. So in the practicum experiences that I mentioned in one of the first slides, at almost every practicum place that I have been at, I've been able to provide mindfulness groups or mindfulness individual services. And some of that was requested by me, but a lot of that was kind of the requirement of the sites. Or expectations of the sites. So my experiences with the Inner Resources Center was able to strengthen my ability to provide those services in the other settings. And it also made me more desirable as an applicant in some of those settings, because a lot of people have experience maybe their own personal experience or experiences with clients providing mindfulness interventions, but a lot of them aren't based in evidence, and a lot of individuals haven't had specialized training where they're able to conceptualize things a little differently. So I do feel like that helped me stand out a little more as an applicant. So in the future, I'm furthering my desire to work with the populations that I've mentioned. I have a postdoc an APA accredited postdoc next year at San Mateo Medical Center. I'm working predominantly in Spanish in the hospital setting. There's an inpatient psychology, neuropsychology, and gender clinic rotation. And there's also research opportunities related to mindfulness and related to sleep, not their connection, but separately. So I'm still able to kind of further my passion for mindfulness through research and through practice there. My longer term plans include directing or supervising in a hospital setting similar to the one that I will be at for postdoc. Also offering diversity related and mindfulness related trainings to different sites. I have been able to provide some trainings through work settings or through practicum settings informally. So I would like to be able to continue to do that. And then eventually to develop a part-time private practice with a colleague. We have this brainstormed, but to provide individual psychotherapy and some psychological testing, and hopefully some immigration psychological evaluations pro bono. So I do feel that my experiences within the area of emphasis do kind of have set me out as a stronger applicant for some of these opportunities. Having this experience did strengthen my application for this postdoc where they're doing research on mindfulness. And I will say that in my interview for the postdoc, I had a role play with a supervisor, and I did lead a mindfulness intervention during that role play. So I feel like my comfort level and confidence and ability with mindfulness was definitely strengthened by my participation in the area of emphasis.
Wow, that's really great to hear. Thanks so much, Adriana.
And if anyone has any questions, you can also reach out to me.
Thank you. I wanted, Hillary can't be here today, but she provided some slides so I can tell you a little bit about the work that she's doing. She's also expecting to graduate this year, and she is also an area of emphasis student. She, like everyone in our PhD program, did a practicum in her second year in the Gronowski Center. She also worked in the Tenderloin Health Services and the San Francisco VA, and is now at the University of San Francisco and California Pacific Medical Center on internship. She was in the Inner Resources practicum for 3 years, and she facilitated Inner Resources group across a lot of different settings. The Sunnyvale Senior Center, which is a really delightful community senior center in our area. The Gronowski Center, the Tenderloin Health Services, which was in a primary care clinic, and at the VA hospital in San Francisco. And she also led didactics and trainings for clinicians in almost all those sites. And she's especially interested in adapting mindfulness interventions for medical settings in patients with medical and mental health conditions. And so she's well on her way to doing that. She's in her dissertation research is exploring some of the underlying mechanisms of mindfulness. So how do mindfulness components, like other forms of therapy, bestow benefits? So when she joined my lab, she was especially interested in physiological mechanisms and jumped right in on the publication, preparing a study, a randomized control trial that we did of the Inner Resources meditation for diurnal cortisol slope, which is a marker of physiological stress regulation. So she did show her interest in physiological aspects, and her dissertation is about cognitive mechanisms. So it's a really fascinating project comparing two forms of meditation on outcomes of cognitive decentering. And you can see she has a long list of publications, some of which she participated in my lab and some from her previous educational affiliation. And in the future, she had planned to take a gap year to travel before going to postdoc. I don't know about that anymore for her, but her longer term plans is to work in integrated medical settings and to offer mindfulness-based trainings and consultation. And she also did say she's happy to talk to any of you if you have any questions. So I wanted to move now and introduce Dr. Sarah DeLuca to you, who was in the Inner Resources Practicum for, I think, 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah. I completed both the meditation and psychology area of emphasis, as well as the diversity and community mental health area of emphasis. So it is possible to do 2 areas if you're interested. And I graduated I think I graduated last year. So I don't know why I put 2017, but I graduated last year.
A long time ago, right?
It seems long ago, but it's not. So for my clinical training in practicum, I was at the Gronowski Clinic doing outpatient general mental health. I did a practicum at an outpatient substance abuse clinic working with folks with co-occurring substance use and mental health conditions. And for my 3rd year practicum, I was at the San Francisco VA Medical Center in the Psychosocial Recovery and Rehabilitation Center, primarily working with veterans with serious mental illness. After that, I went to internship in Los Angeles, back to community mental health, working with adults and transitional age youth with a wide variety of diagnoses. So I did some work in the field, seeing clients in their home or in the community, and also clinic-based work, working with folks with SMI, trauma, mood disorders, and personality disorders. And currently I'm completing a postdoctoral fellowship back at the San Francisco VA. Very happy to be back in the Bay Area. And I'm in the same clinic that I was for externship, but doing a couple additional rotations in telemental health, which has proven to be very timely training, as now everything is telemental health for us. And also doing some supervision of the intern level trainees and some program evaluation projects. As Lynn said, I spent 4 years training in the Inner Resources Center, which I loved. I was both a trainee and the center coordinator. So I did a 1st year as a practicum student and 3 years as a student supervisor. And as Dr. Waldy mentioned, as an advanced student, I had the opportunity to do some community trainings. So I assisted with some trainings at Momentum for Mental Health and ACCI, Asian American for Community Involvement. And that was really aligned with my personal interest in training mental health providers in meditation intervention for self-care and also for clinical application. And in line with that, based on my externship at the San Francisco VA, I was able to stay on as kind of an informal extern for an additional year, and I actually trained clinical staff, including my supervisor, the director of the center at the time, and a peer support specialist to be IR facilitators so that they could continue offering and leading the Inner Resources group that I had started there for veterans with SMI. So I've led IR groups for a wide variety of participants, including students at PAU, adults with various mental health conditions. I did a program for peer support specialists at the VA, and then, as I mentioned, have facilitated groups for therapists as well. One of my biggest projects working in the Inner Resources Center was to create some adaptations in the intervention for veterans with serious mental illness, but more broadly for individuals experiencing serious mental illness. So I saw that in my clinic, we didn't offer, at the San Francisco VA, we didn't offer any mindfulness groups, and I was I thought that it would actually be a really good fit for individuals with SMI-related issues, because similarly to the adaptation for trauma that Dr. Waldy created, there's a lot of disruption in attention in serious mental illness and a lot of kind of competing stimuli. And so I worked with the staff at the VA and Dr. Waldy to create a psychoeducation handout specifically for veterans with SMI. And I also created, we created a handout for therapists to assist in their training, to consider different adaptations they might need to do for folks with SMI. And so in the clinic at the San Francisco VA, we lead groups that are 12 weeks long. So we had to adapt the inner resources curriculum a little bit to extend across 12 weeks, and they're also much shorter groups. So the typical inner resources group length is usually 90 minutes, but it can be adapted for many different lengths. So we do very quick 45-minute groups, and we also shorten the meditations to be 15 minutes as a consideration for the veterans we're working with. And I was able to have the clinic collect some program evaluation data, which I'm actually currently compiling and looking at, basically as trying to assess some outcomes of the group and to demonstrate how it is useful and effective for veterans with serious mental illness. And the group is actually on its third year this year. So it ran for 2 years, and I'm actually facilitating it currently. I led it today by video. We have veterans who attend groups right now by video to home. So we had 3 veterans today, and it was our first week of the group today. So
wow. That's actually an impressive accomplishment. One thing is worth reflecting on is that there's a lot of conventional wisdom that says people with serious mental illness can't meditate. And when I first told Dr. DeLuca that, she said, yeah, I don't think that's true. I think they actually can. And so it's been very gratifying to see this program develop and to see how it was embraced by the staff at the San Francisco VA.
So a bit about my research experience. So I was also in the meditation and psychology research lab with Dr. Waldy. And I did attend the Psychology of Mindfulness class. And it was actually based on papers and discussions that we had in the class that me and a few other students decided to collaborate on a paper about diversity factors in psychology research. So we saw, based on kind of our learning in the class and our individual projects there, that there seemed to be a lack of both inclusion of diverse participants, minority research, and also a lack of specific adaptations related to culture. And so we conducted a systematic review of the literature, and which was quite a feat, actually. And we're able to publish that paper about 2 years ago. My dissertation was related to therapists' understandings of the mechanisms of mindfulness. So I asked therapists to rate 4 different interventions, some of which were mindfulness interventions and some of which were related techniques, and asked them to rate each technique across a couple different dimensions, basically trying to estimate how they thought the intervention was effective for the clients. And I'm hoping to return to that and kind of create a more focused paper that I could publish based on those findings. And in collecting the dissertation data, Dr. Waldy and I actually were able to kind of give back to the communities in which I was sampling by offering training as we were collecting the data. So that was really kind of hit both of my passions there, because we were able to, give information to therapists and then also collect data for a research project. And then lastly, as I've been interested in therapist training, Dr. Waldy and I were able to put together a paper based on students who have completed the inner resources training, specifically trying to put out and kind of craft a set of training standards that can be adopted by many different mindfulness training programs, and to demonstrate how therapists are able to both learn meditation for themselves, and that their own meditation practice informs and is related to their clinical competencies of mindfulness. And this is definitely something we're both passionate about, and we have been advocating very strongly to get this information out there so that mindfulness training can be kind of widely distributed in a more systematic, structured way, and can be accessible to therapists and students from many different theoretical backgrounds. And so hopefully we will have that published soon. It's submitted right now, so. These are some of the papers I was mentioning. And I was also just on internship, actually participated in a program evaluation project, and which was also related to diversity, where we looked at diversity factors that were correlated to protective and risk factors for suicidal intent during a crisis center call. And so that was also another way that I've incorporated diversity into kind of quality improvement or program evaluation projects and research. So I'm currently back at the San Francisco VA doing my postdoctoral fellowship, and definitely happy to talk to folks about my experiences at the VA more if you want to contact me about that. Being at the VA has been a really, really rich training experience, and I've been able to be involved in a lot of different projects where I've been able to utilize my mindfulness expertise, and I find that I'm actually like sought out at times for that resource. So as I mentioned, I worked with the peer support specialist to offer them mindfulness training, and have been doing a little bit of consultation with other providers around conducting research with mindfulness or implementing mindfulness for other programs. So it's been a really good experience so far, and we've been adapting very quickly to the new circumstances. So doing a lot of telehealth right now. Yeah. And so for the future, I'm applying for a staff position right now at the San Francisco VA, and we'll be looking for a full-time position either in nonprofit or at a VA setting. I'm definitely interested in continuing to provide clinical care. I also really enjoy supervising psychology trainees, so hope to be able to do that, and to try to put out some more research papers that we've been kind of cooking up over the past few years in addition to my dissertation. And most of all, I'm trying to get licensed. I was able to sit for my EPPP exam just on the last day before it closed, so that was a huge success and pass. So I'm on my way to getting licensed. In the long term, I definitely am still committed to training mental health providers in mindfulness and other interventions, as well as trainees. Want to continue to provide direct clinical care, both in community mental health, VA, and maybe a little bit of private practice as well. And generally to contribute to the scientific knowledge base.